She thought she was visiting her son's grave to find peace. But what she found instead, a crying waitress, a mysterious child, and a secret that shattered everything she believed, turned her world upside down. Sometimes, the truth doesn't knock, it explodes. And when it does, no amount of money or power can stop it. The rain was soft that morning, more like a whisper than a storm. The clouds had gathered like mourners in the sky, and the cemetery smelled like wet roses and stone. Margaret Ellington didn't mind the rain. In fact, she welcomed it. It made her feel less alone as she stood before the grave of her only son, Daniel. She was a billionaire, yes, owner of Ellington Global Holdings, known across the country for her power and wealth. But in this moment, under the dripping umbrella and beside the cold marble headstone, she was just a mother. Her heels sank slightly into the mud as she placed fresh lilies on the grave. She whispered, "I still can't believe you're gone, Daniel." She closed her eyes, and just as she did, she heard the soft sound of crying. When she opened them, she froze. A young black woman, in a faded waitress uniform, was kneeling at the other side of Daniel's grave, her arms wrapped tightly around a small boy, no more than 5. The child was sobbing into her chest, and the woman was quietly wiping his tears, her own face drenched with grief. Margaret stepped back slightly confused. "Excuse me," she said, trying to remain polite despite the storm brewing in her chest. "Why are you here?" The woman stood up slowly, straightening her back as if she'd been expecting this moment. She held the boy close and looked Margaret straight in the eye. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said softly. "I didn't mean to intrude. We just needed to be here." Margaret's eyes narrowed. The boy. There was something strange, familiar, and then she saw it. His eyes. Those weren't just any eyes. They were Daniel's eyes, deep gray blue, filled with fire and softness at the same time. The same eyes that once lit up Margaret's world. "Who is he?" Margaret asked, her voice trembling now. The woman placed her hand gently on the boy's shoulder. "His name is Noah," she said. "He's your grandson." The wind suddenly felt colder. Hours later, at Ellington Mansion, Margaret sat at her long dining table, untouched coffee growing cold in front of her. The woman's words echoed like thunder. "He's your grandson." It couldn't be true, could it? She had made sure her son stayed away from the wrong kind of women. He dated models, scholars, high society girls. But a waitress? A black waitress? Impossible. Margaret made a call. "I want everything on a woman named Keisha Brown. Background check. Where she works. Where she lives. I want to know what she eats for breakfast." That evening, the report arrived quickly. Keisha Brown, age 28, former nursing student, dropped out due to financial hardship, works double shifts at a small diner near 6th Street, lives in a modest one-bedroom apartment, no marriage record, no paternity listed for her child, no connections, no power. Perfect. The next day, Margaret walked into the diner in sunglasses and pearls, flanked by 2 assistants. Keisha looked up from the counter, unsurprised. "Can we talk?" Margaret asked. Keisha untied her apron and led her to the back, where the old fridge hummed louder than their breathing. Margaret didn't waste time. "Name your price." Keisha blinked. "Excuse me? I know women like you. You saw an opportunity. A rich, grieving mother. You saw those eyes, realized they could be worth something. So tell me, how much will it take for you to walk away? $100,000? $200,000? Keisha didn't flinch. "He's not for sale." "Then what do you want?" Margaret snapped. Keisha stood still, voice calm and steady. "I want my son to know where he comes from. I want him to know his father wasn't ashamed of him." Margaret's lips tightened. "There's no proof he's Daniel's." "I have letters," Keisha said. "Photos. Voice recordings. He used to sneak away just to see Noah. He loved him. He wanted to tell you, but he was scared of how you'd react. Margaret laughed bitterly. This is ridiculous. Keisha leaned closer, her eyes sharp. You think I'm just a poor girl looking for a way out. But you don't know what I've been through. I raised that boy on my own. I've cleaned floors and wiped tables while he waited outside with homework in his lap. I never asked for your money. I came here because he asked to see where his daddy sleeps. Margaret stared at her, speechless. And you think that's the end of it? Keisha added. You think I walked into your life by accident? 1 week later, it started with a news leak. Sources claim Ellington Global's late heir, Daniel Ellington, had a secret son with a woman from outside the billionaire circle. Then came the legal letter. Keisha had filed a paternity claim. Margaret wasn't worried, until she saw the name of the lawyer representing Keisha. He wasn't cheap. He was legendary. And he only took cases he knew he'd win. How did she afford him? That's when the second report landed on Margaret's desk. About a trust fund Daniel had quietly created in someone else's name. It had grown over 5 years to more than $600,000. The name on it? Noah Daniel Ellington. Her world began to shake. Back in the cemetery, Keisha stood alone this time. I told you, Daniel, she whispered. I told you I'd protect him. I just didn't think I'd have to do it like this. She wiped a tear, and a voice behind her spoke. You were right, Margaret. No assistance, no pearls, just a woman who had begun to see past her pride. Is he really Daniel's? She asked. Keisha didn't answer. She just handed her a letter, Daniel's handwriting. Margaret read in silence. At the bottom, one sentence shattered her. If anything happens to me, make sure Mom knows the truth. And tell Noah I love him more than life. The news spread like wildfire. Ellington Empire faces fraud charges. Secrets of the billionaire heiress exposed. The media swarmed the mansion Margaret once ruled like a queen. Now, she stood behind her lawyer, her once commanding presence reduced to silence. On TV, Keisha's calm face appeared, sitting beside a quiet little boy with Daniel's eyes. His name, Noah Daniel Ellington. Margaret watched in disbelief as video clips played of Daniel holding baby Noah years ago. She never even knew those moments existed. Her son had kept a secret from her. No, he had protected something, someone. And now, that someone was dismantling everything she had built. Margaret sat still as Keisha's lawyer spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't just a case about money. It's about blood. It's about truth. And it's about a boy who deserves to know his father's name was not erased just because he was inconvenient to the rich. Keisha stood up and told her story. How she met Daniel when she was just a struggling art student. How they fell in love quietly, away from the flashing cameras and social events. How Daniel promised he'd tell his mother about the baby after graduation. But then he died. She tried to visit the mansion once. The guards pushed her away. She sent letters. No reply. So she stayed silent. But not idle. She studied law. She raised her son. She built a quiet, steady life, waiting for the day she could bring Daniel's truth back into the light. DNA results confirmed it. Noah was Daniel Ellington's son. But Keisha didn't stop there. Her lawyers produced hidden documents, letters Daniel wrote about Keisha and the baby. She had recordings, too, voicemails, even a diary entry from Daniel on the night before he died, saying, "Tomorrow, I'll tell Mom. No more hiding. She deserves to know. And so does the world." He never got the chance. But Keisha kept his promise for him. The judge ruled in Keisha's favor. Noah was declared the rightful heir to Daniel's estate. Every document Margaret tried to hide was now evidence. Worse still, Keisha's team uncovered something much darker. Fraud, tax evasion, corporate manipulation. Margaret had covered up deals for years, hiding money in offshore accounts while laying off hundreds of employees. One former employee even came forward and said, "She fired me while I was caring for my sick child. And now I find out she was stealing from the company the whole time." The FBI moved in. Margaret was arrested. Months passed. In the prison's visiting room, Margaret sat alone in her gray uniform, eyes tired. The woman who once had everything now had nothing. Then the door opened. Keisha walked in, holding Noah's hand. The boy looked unsure. Margaret looked away at first, then back at her grandson. Her voice cracked. "Why are you here?" Keisha sat down. Her voice was soft but steady. "Noah wanted to meet you," he said. "He believes bad people can change." Margaret stared at the child. He looked just like Daniel. The same eyes, same little chin, same quiet strength. Noah reached into his bag and pulled out a small, crumpled painting. A boy, a tree, a woman under a cloudy sky. "I painted this for you," he said. Margaret blinked back tears. For the first time in her life, she didn't know what to say. Outside the prison walls, Keisha and Noah lived in a modest lake house. Nothing flashy, just peace. On the walls were framed pictures. Daniel's college photo, Noah's first piano recital, a photo of Keisha smiling in her law school graduation gown. One wall had a quote written in gold paint. "Justice doesn't roar. It whispers, but when it speaks, it changes everything." Noah had a violin now. He practiced every afternoon. Keisha worked as a legal advisor for single mothers. She never touched Daniel's inheritance for herself. Every penny went into Noah's trust, and a charity in Daniel's name. People offered interviews, book deals. She turned them all down. They didn't need the noise. They had love. They had peace. They had the truth. Sometimes, justice doesn't come with loud protests or angry words. Sometimes, it comes through quiet strength, steady patience, and a love so deep it survives even betrayal, silence, and loss. Keisha didn't need revenge. She only wanted her son's place to be seen. And now it is.